Welcome, welcome everyone. If we could all kindly take our seats, we'll begin in a moment's time. Welcome everyone. We are very delighted to have you all here with us. If you could all kindly take your seats, we'll begin in just a moment's time. If we can all kindly take our seats. Once again, welcome everyone. We're very delighted to have you all here with us. Kindly take your seats, get comfortable. We'll begin today's important proceedings in just a few minutes. Welcome, everyone. We will be diving into a very important session that really promises to spark meaningful dialogue and shine a spotlight on some of the most critical issues of our time. So, as we get ready to begin, please do get comfortable as we wait for our distinguished to come in, and then we will begin the important proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our distinguished guests as they make their way into the podium. Excellencies, we're very delighted to have you with us. You're very, very much welcome. Thank you all. Thank you, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome, everyone. We're very delighted to have you all here today. A very, very good evening. My name is Naringwa Fiona Mosoni, and it's my distinct honor to welcome you to the official launch of the 2025 edition of the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World, the SOFI report, here at Africa Hall as part of the second United Nations Food System Summit StockTech. Before we really officially begin and get into today's program, I would like to start by inviting Mr. Maximo Torero Kellen, the Chief Economist of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, to come and deliver a special intervention. Let's welcome Mr. Maximo as he comes to the podium.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, thank you so much. I will just take a couple of minutes. So our friend, Sir David Navarro, a friend, a colleague, a true global public good. Sir David Navarro was tireless champion of health, food security, and human dignity. From his early leadership at WHO to his most recent work as a strategic director of FOREST Foundation and co-director of the Global Health at Imperial College London. David embodied the values of service, humanity, multilateral action. He was ignited in 2023 for his lifelong dedication. He served as WHO Special Envoy on COVID-19, Special Representative for Food Security and Nutrition, and a key architect of the Food System Summit dialogues. His leadership shaped global food responses to Ebola, avian flu, and malnutrition, and his legacy was recognized with the Nobel Food Prize in 2018. As we release this edition of the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the world, the first in many years to report progress in hunger reduction, we dedicate it to Sir David. His life work made this moment possible. Thank you very much, and please join me in an applause for them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Maximo, for those thoughtful words and for highlighting the remarkable contributions of Sir David Navarro. Really, your reflection reminds us not only the depth of his dedication, but also the wisdom and the tireless commitment he brings to the global effort of food security and nutrition. And to be honest, that is why we are all here today. We are gathered here in this space, united by a shared purpose. One, to eradicate hunger and malnutrition in the world. As we begin, may I kindly invite all our distinguished speakers for today to come to the podium and take their seats here at the front. We welcome you all. You're very much welcome. You're welcome, sir. And as we get ready to really dive into this particular session, it's going to be a moment for us all to listen, for us to learn and also reflect, as we will be hearing from distinguished voices working at the forefront of global efforts to transform our food systems. We're very delighted to have you all here today. And really today we have the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and its partners who will be presenting key messages from the SOFI report 2025. As the previous editions, this year's report will go beyond the numbers. It will really examine the underlying drivers of recent food inflation. It will assess its impact on food security and nutrition outcomes, and also outline policy responses that are required to mitigate and prevent its adverse effects. This is not just a report, but it is a call to action to prevent today's pressures from becoming tomorrow's global failures. I would like now to kindly just draw your attention to the fact that this event is being interpreted in the 6 UN official languages, that is English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian, as well as Portuguese. Right in front of you, please do make use of the interpretation screen that you have. Now, to set on for today's launch, we invite you all to watch a short video that introduces this year's reports and the critical themes that will guide dialogue. The technical team is working to make sure that we can all hear what we can all see clearly, that is very critical in highlighting what we'll be discussing today. Let's give it a few more seconds. The technical team has just told me that they are finalizing on making sure that the technical difficulties are solved. We'll get to see what the content is in the video in just a moment's time. For now, we are going to transition and get the opening remarks from our distinguished guests who are here with us today. For the opening remarks, we are going to hear from global leaders who are deeply engaged in shaping a more secure, a fair and resilient food systems. To start us off, help me welcome Ms. Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. You're welcome.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Excellencies, dear colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Knowledge is power, and today's launch of the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report delivers sobering insights, and with them, the power to act. The data in this report tells us that around the world, hunger, malnutrition, and inequality continue to deny millions of people the most basic human rights: the right to food, the right to health, and the right to a dignified life. This is not just a humanitarian crisis, but also a development crisis, an economic crisis, and a crisis of justice. The crises are man-made, and it is within our power to deliver on the rights that all people should enjoy. Ending hunger is not a single goal. It is the cornerstone of sustainable development. Progress on food and nutrition, improving learning outcomes in children. It increases the earning potentials of adults. It empowers women and youth. It reduces healthcare costs. It builds peaceful societies. In short, achieving food security unlocks progress across every other aspect of the 2030 Agenda. Yet, we are far off track. Despite the fact that hunger has declined, and only slightly tonight more than 670 million people will go to bed hungry, and in regions like Africa, the situation continues to worsen. 307 million people are hungry on this continent alone, nearly 1 in 5, and mostly exacerbated by the conflicts and climate crisis. Hunger is also deepening the inequality faced across the world. Women's nutrition continues to deteriorate. Anemia among women aged 15 to 49 has risen over the past decade. 2/3 of women in that age group do not meet minimum dietary diversity, undermining their health and the health of future generations. Meanwhile, children are suffering consequences that will last a lifetime. 1/3 of children between 6 and 23 months are not getting the nutrients that they need during the most critical window of brain development and growth. Ultimately, affordability is at the heart of all of this. Since 2020, global food price inflation has consistently outpaced general inflation. In low-income countries, this means skipping meals, selling assets, or pulling children out of school just so families can afford to eat. In every region, these overlapping crises, conflict, climate shocks, inflation, displacement, are all exposing the deep fragility of our food systems. So the message is clear. Cooperation must replace conflict. We must transform the systems that feed the world urgently, systematically, and inclusively. Food systems touch every part of our lives. They're not just about agriculture or nutrition. They're about how we grow, process, transport, trade, buy, and consume food, and how these choices shape our societies, our economies, and our ecosystems. Food systems are about opportunity. Today, food systems provide jobs and livelihoods to over 1 billion people worldwide, directly or indirectly. In many low-income countries, they account for up to 60% of employment. So transforming these systems is not only about feeding people, it's also about reducing poverty, creating opportunities, and building resilience. Transformed food systems can help support smallholder farmers, women, and youth. They can lower the cost of healthy diets by improving infrastructure, reducing and ensuring fair market access. They can also create green jobs by shifting to sustainable production practices, improve public health by aligning production and marketing with nutritional needs, strengthening food sovereignty and reducing dependency by diversifying production and trade. Perhaps most urgently, they can deliver climate solutions. Today, food systems contribute about 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions, but they're also uniquely positioned to help restore ecosystems and adapt to a changing climate. Sustainable practices, regenerative agriculture, reduced food waste, and smarter logistics can turn food systems from a source of degradation to a force of regeneration. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget the true cost of our current food systems is not just measured in dollars. It is measured in lives lost to malnutrition, in children's stunted futures, in degraded soils and polluted rivers, in growing inequality and lost opportunity. Transformation will not happen on its own. It will require political will, long-term investment, and bold leadership. It demands policy coherence across sectors, from agriculture and trade to health, education and finance. It calls for empowering local governments and communities. It means working with the private sector to align incentives. And it requires putting people, especially the most vulnerable, at the center of decision making. If we all want to succeed, we have to move beyond the emergency response and short-term fixes, from individual projects to sector-wide transitions. The good news is that we know what works, and we have the solutions. We've seen it in countries that have strengthened social protection, invested in school meals, supported farmers with technology, created urban, rural democracies. We've seen it in Ethiopia in our Action Day yesterday. We have a brilliant scientific minds and data to drive our work. What we need now is the determination to act at the speed and scale the moment demands. Excellencies, the time for incremental change has passed. The time for ambition and solidarity is now. We must not accept a world where hunger or where we put on our plates what we put on our plates endangers the planet. Instead, let us commit to build food systems that are resilient, equitable, inclusive, sustainable, one that creates opportunity and a dignity for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Amina. To just echo what she has said, the time for action is now, the time for solidarity is now. And thank you for really presenting data that so clearly paints the picture and really shows us how urgent we all need to work and also coordinated efforts. Now, please help me. Well, join me in welcoming our next speaker, His Excellency Ambassador Taye Atske-Selassie Amde, President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. And Your Excellency, you're most welcome to speak from the podium if that's what you're comfortable with. Okay, thank you so much. You're very, very much welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Your Excellency Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Minister Wellington Dias of Brazil, Your Excellency Deputy Foreign Minister of Italy, Mr. Edmund Cherilli, Mr. Qui Dongyu, Director General of FAO, Mr. Alvaro Lario, President of IFAD, Ms. Cindy McCain, Executive Director of WFP, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Allow me to extend our sincere gratitude to the Food and Agriculture Organization for presenting to us the most notable findings of the report on the state of food security and nutrition in the world 2025. Before I proceed with my remarks, let me also express my heartfelt condolences on the passing of Dr. David Nabarro, an international public servant who lived for the service of humanity throughout his career. My deepest sympathy to his family, friends, and colleagues. We need to first acknowledge the immense work put forth by UN agencies in preparing this document. It is meticulous preparation and context-based analysis provide an invaluable resource for countries diligently working to reduce food inflation. The report helps to inform policies to bring forth quick gains and also long-term solutions. The data provided are a sobering call to all of us and clearly show the gravity of this food security crisis and the immense challenge that lies before us. The report focuses on food price, the pervasive impact of inflation, and indeed a demand for collective and decisive action. High food prices have adversely impacted populations across the globe, especially in low-income countries, and in particular on people with economic vulnerability. Even to families who presumably afford to manage high prices, inflation is depleting household assets and consequently will contribute to long-term vulnerability. Therefore, it is compelling that we take coordinated and sustainable action at national, regional, and international levels. We also need robust strategies, not only to stabilize food prices, but to ensure that all households are equipped with the capacity and the means to access adequate food are the fundamental rights. Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, in line with our top priority, sustained food security, Ethiopia is making concerted efforts to increase productivity and transform our food system. In this regard, allow me just to briefly mention two key pillars of our strategy. First, we are increasing the productivity of and resilience of our household farms through what we call it the bounty of the basket initiative, empowering households to produce nutritious food locally. The baskets, or in Ethiopian lexicon, the lemmas, carries a dual significance. In our culture, pretty much in African culture, it evokes the image of a basket overflowing with produce. It is also the iconic African basket, a symbol of bountiful harvest that embodies the very heart of African livelihoods and food system. We also develop a climate resilient wheat varieties, transforming Ethiopia from a net importer to a self-sufficient producer, mainly benefiting farmers. The second one is improving trade in agricultural produce. To boost regional agricultural trade, we are investing in key infrastructure like the Lapset corridor, the recently inked Ethiopia-South Sudan road development, and the Addis-Djibouti railway, further compounded by our commitment to the African continental free trade area. Despite these achievements, we face food price spikes. However, by balancing short-term relief with long-term reforms, we have cut food inflation from over 35% to 11.7% as of June this year. Additionally, our productive safety net program involves over 8 million vulnerable citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, the report has indicated the relationship between global food price inflation and the war in some parts of the world. It is my strong view that food inflation is also a result of absence of peace. The urgent need to call for peace is indeed a call for food security itself. The painful reality is that people don't only die from the direct violence of war, but also lose their lives from its ruthless impact. The inconceivable violence and the instinct desire to create chaos has become unbearable. Those who think that war is the answer to every challenge must be told to desist from their bellicose thinking. In light of addressing the impending food inflation and nutrition crisis, it has become glaringly clear than ever before that peace is the only battle worth waging. In closing, as we reflect on the findings of this report, let us not be discouraged by the scale of the challenge. Instead, let our progress serve as a powerful catalyst for greater action. We should view our efforts to address high food price inflation not as an isolated challenge, but as an integral part of our broader mission to achieve a just, peaceful, and prosperous world. Ethiopia remains steadfast in its commitment to working with our international partners to build a future where everyone has access to adequate nutrition foods, a future where peace allows for prosperity and where no one had to go hungry. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for the encouraging words and for also highlighting the crucial work that is currently being done here in Ethiopia as we continue to reflect on the outcomes of the report. We're now going to hear from Mr. Edmondo Shirieli, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, who is attending on behalf of the President officers of Italy. You're welcome, and also feel free to sit and deliver your remarks. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Honorable President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Deputy Secretary General, Directors and President of UN Rome-based agencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends. It's a great honor for me to be here today to represent the President of the Council of Ministers, Giorgia Meloni, and bring a warm greetings to this esteemed audience in the occasion of the launch of 2025 edition of the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report. Let me begin by extending warm and respectful greeting to President Taye Atse Selassie and to the governmental people of Ethiopia for their generous hospitality and for co-hosting this summit together with Italy. This joint effort is one further demonstration of our partnership grounded in our long-lasting friendship and spirit and the common vision of shared responsibility. Allow me also to express my sincere appreciation to the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohamed, for her leadership and steadfast commitment to food system transformation and sustainable development, the heart and soul of this summit. And we express our deep appreciation for the excellent collaboration and their solid steering of the process. Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for Italy, food security is a strategic priority. It lies at the core of our foreign policy and international cooperation agenda, as reaffirmed last year through our G7 presidency and through initiatives such as Mattei Plan for Africa, where agriculture stands as one of the plan's fundamental pillars. When we discuss food security, we are not only talking about what we eat, but also about the future of our societies. the well-being of our economic systems, and global health. From a health perspective, the access to quality and varied food is essential to ensure people have well-balanced diets and therefore to better lifestyles. In this sense, the rising cost of food, which is at the center of this year's SOFI report, is not just an economic challenge, but a direct obstacle to access to food for all. For this reason, a sustainable transformation of how we produce, distribute, and consume our food is needed. Excellencies, we are particularly pleased that the launch of this year's SOFI report takes place in the framework of the Food System Summit. This alignment is significant. It speaks to a growing awareness that political dialogue and policy direction must be grounded in facts and in evidence. Addressing such topics is crucial to empower countries to shape their own food systems and secure the right to adequate nutrition for all. The Italian approach to food sovereignty focuses on the importance to work with African countries to increase their self-reliance and their capacity to produce food, and in particular the nutrition food rooted in their local community and traditional knowledge. By so doing, we aim at scaling up programs and strategic initiatives directed to strengthen their capacity to prevent and respond to systemic food crisis. Let me give two examples already mentioned by Prime Minister Meloni this morning. In Senegal, Ghana, and the Republic of Congo, and prospectively in Ivory Coast and Kenya, we are implementing a public-private partnership for the agri-food sector with the biggest Italian agro-industrial group, BF, and with SIAM. In Tunisia, through the TANI project, we aim to conquer back this region to agriculture by working on critical aspects of water and irrigation. In parallel, our strategic and action on coffee, value chains, it's already well known here in Ethiopia and across the African continent, and we have just concluded a successful event at the Museum of Science to celebrate this approach. Excellencies, occasion as these allow us to promote new approaches to better shape our action and to move forward in our commitment to shared goals. Italy will remain fully committed to this effort in a spirit of genuine partnership. Thank you very much all.
Thank you, Mr. Chirieli, and thank you to all our distinguished speakers for the strong words, for the continued leadership and commitment to global food security. The global food crisis cannot really be addressed in isolation, as it has been mentioned by our speakers. It requires coordinated efforts. And in this next segment, we will hear from the United Nations principals and partners of SOFI, working every day to turn policy into impact. Each speaker will have about 5 minutes, and I would like to start it by introducing our first speaker, Mr. Chu Dongyu, Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, moderator. Good evening. Excellencies, Honorable President, Republic of Ethiopia, our long friend, support agri-food system and the development in this country, and now become the president. So I'm so glad you can join us and give the applause. And also the DSG, Mohammed Armenia, you always walk the talk to come to support this report. And not only in New York, now we move to Addis Ababa. So thank you for your coming. And also our host country, Italian representatives, and dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to be here with you today to officially launch the 2025 State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World Report. This marks the first time the SOFI report is being presented on the African continent, together with my colleagues from Rome, City McKay, and Lavaria, and also invited special guests from the Minister of the Brazil. A proper choice, as Africa stands at the front line in the global fight against hunger. We began our day by highlighting the agency of transforming our ecosystems through the better production and the nutrition, by the environment, by life living, ensuring no one is left behind. Across the world, countries are working to ensure that this system delivers safe, nutritious, and affordable food for all, and now and in the future. Achieving this requires transparent, high-quality data and professional analysis. While the challenges are significant, they are not impossible to solve and can be turned into opportunity for all. By sharing knowledge, experience, and practice solutions, we can and must meet our shared ambitions. This is the core purpose of the SOFI report. The news this year offer hope, even if we are still far from where we need to be. In 2024, 673 million people around the world face hunger equivalent to 8.2% of the global population. That marks an improvement from 8.5% in 2023. It's remarkable. While the hunger levels have declined from their 2022 peak, and we have not yet recovered from the compounded crisis of the recent years. Today, 90 million more people are facing hunger than in 2020, and 100 million more than in 2015, where the SDG were launched. Of course, we have the 10 years population increase. So that number is still more, but the ratio, percentage is declining. The global figure consider vary from one region to another. In Africa, hunger continues to worsen. Today, the 307 million people, equivalent to 20% of the population, are food insecure. That is standing in strong contrast with Asia, where the 6.7%, 323 million people facing hunger, and Latin America and the Caribbean region, where the 5.1%, 34 million people are affected. Encouraging progress has been made in both Asia and Latin America, Caribbean region, and especially Brazil. This year is the first time again get out of the hunger map. It means low down 2.5%. Should congratulations to Brazil, to my friend from the Lula. Declared by the 0.6 and 0.2% points, respectively, between 2023 and 2024. Hungers has fallen notably in Southeast and South Asia, as well as in South America, driven by the smart targeted policy and the strategic investment. Despite this progress, projections show that by 2030, 512 million people were still facing chronic hunger, and 6 out of every 10 will be in this continent, Africa. That's why I said so many times, started first day in FAO, Africa, we should focus, because it's our common task. Not only Africa brothers and sisters, we need strengthening and more focus on the Africa continent. Data always tell the truth. Recovery must be inclusive. We cannot accept a future where the entire region are left behind. When we look beyond the hunger, the malnutrition picture remains a mixed. Child study has declined modestly over the past decade, but the Westing has stagnated. Westing still Armenia among the women aged 15 to 49 has increased from 27.6% to 30.7%, with most regions showing stagnation or deterioration. And while there are millions goes hunger, many others consume more than it has. Adult obesity rising from 12.1% in 2012 to the 15.8% in 2022, a sharp reminder of the stubborn burden of malnutrition. But undernourishment is only the visible tip of the much larger aspect in 2024. Around 2.3 billion people experience moderate or severe food insecurity. This burden are not shared equally. Africa remains the most severely affected region. Again, globally, rural population women continue to bear the brunt of the food insecurity. Improving the quality of the diets is essential. A healthy diet must be adequate, diverse, balanced, and moderate. This is why I'm pleased to announce that for the first time, the SOFI report included new indicators of dietary diversity for both children and women. This is the critical step forward monitoring SDG target 2.2 more effectively. The findings are daunting. Only 1/3 of children aged 6 to 23 months and 2/3 of women aged 15 to 49 years old meet the minimum criteria for diet diversity. That's why I said so many times, from biodiversity to the food diversity should be our right direction to go. Much more must be done to expand access to the nutritious diverse diets for all, especially women and children. We must make healthy diets more valuable, more accessible, and more affordable. The 2021 SOFI report provides for the first time a global estimate on affordability. While there has been moderate progress since then, as of the 2024, 2.6 billion people still cannot afford a healthy diet. The limited progress is largely due to the multiple overlapping crises we face. Food inflation, in particular, has eroded purchasing power and mining the ability of the household to translate economic growth into better nutrition. That is why this year's SOFI report included a special focus on food inflation, its causes, its consequences, and what can be done about it. Since 2020, food price inflation has outpaced overall inflation every year, underscoring the unique vulnerability of the agri-food system and the urgent need to prioritize food policy in macroeconomic planning. Addressing these issues requires a coordinated, multi-layered policy response. We must first protect the vulnerability population with targeted time-bound fiscal measures. Second, allowing fiscal and monetary policy to stabilize the market. Third, promote the structural and trade reform for lasting impact. Fourth, strengthening data systems to manage volatility and prevent this speculation. And the fifth, invest in the resilient agri-food system to reduce the risk of the future shocks. In the face of global disruption, protectionist or inward-looking policy are counterproductive. What we need is coordinated global action based on the shared responsibility, solidarity, and sound evidence. The unit and the collaboration among the agencies contributed to the SOFI report shows that it's possible when we work together. This partnership embodies the best of the UN system at the service of its members. The 2025 SOFI report confirmed that progress is possible. Some regions are already demonstrated what works. We must learn from them, act decisively. But time is turning out. Achieving food security and improving nutrition for all will require a sustained political commitment, like President, Prime Minister who come this conference. And bold investment in better production and healthier environment, evidence-based policy that ensure the better lives for everyone. The path forward demand agency, inclusiveness, and action. We must reach all the communities, rural and urban, women and men, children and adults. with solutions that are timely, fair, and effective. Let us act now, not just with ambition, but with determination to achieve zero hunger, leaving no one behind. This is the best way to commemorate our dear friend, Dr. David Navarro, with his whole life determination to control for the better world. That's peace for him and condolence to him and be rest. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your very action-oriented remarks. And he's also just highlighted that this is the very first time that the launch of this report is happening on the African continent. As he said, this is more than just a change of venue, but it is a powerful symbol of partnership and inclusion, as well as it also shows that Africa is home to innovation and resilience. Now, we're now going to hear our next speaker. Help me welcome Mr. Alvaro Lario, President of the International Fund for Agriculture Development. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you. Your Excellency, President Taye Selassie, Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary General, Honorable Minister, Honorable Vice Minister, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and friends. It's an honor to join you today for the launch of the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2025 report. This year's report arrives just after the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development last month in Seville, where the global community reaffirmed the urgent need for cooperation and investment in sustainable development. The rise of hunger in Africa and the Middle East in 2024 and the persistently high number of people facing hunger globally is still very alarming. Hunger leads to exacerbated human suffering and social instability. Even if hunger numbers have diminished slightly, they remain unacceptably high. 1 in 5 in Africa or 1 in 7 in the Middle East. Conflicts, climate shocks, and economic shocks are still the main drivers of hunger. But another important headline from this year's SOFI report is sobering. It confirms food price inflation is one of the most persistent and destabilizing trends in recent years. For many countries, food prices have risen faster than inflation overall, exposing the fragility of our global agri-food systems. The drivers have been consistent throughout the years: pandemic shocks, disrupted supply chains, conflict, and climate-related disasters. Even if high food prices have become a concern worldwide since the pandemic, the burden is not equally distributed. This is most acute in low-income countries and among the poorest households within them, who are still struggling to afford healthy diets because of rising costs of food. While median global food prices inflation reached 13.6% in early 2023, it climbed even higher in low-income countries, peaking at 30% in May 2023. Let me also add that our food systems and our food prices are increasingly vulnerable to environmental shocks. Many of you can see it in the developed and developing supermarkets in your hometowns. Olive oil prices increased 50% in January 2024 after droughts in Spain and Italy. Global cocoa prices increased almost 300% after heat waves in Ghana and Ivory Coast. Maize 36% in South Africa. Rice prices in Japan. Potato prices in the UK after a wet winter, coffee prices in Brazil after a 2023 drought. So the message is clear. We must invest in adaptation before it is too late. So what else can we do to address these challenges? First, we must invest in building resilience, especially in rural areas, so that even the least affluent members of society can withstand shocks and price hikes without going hungry. This is simply a matter of justice. And it means providing them with equitable access to markets and finance, as well as infrastructure. It means supporting them to adapt to the impacts of climate change. And it also means supporting income-generating opportunities so that rural populations can have a decent living. And second, especially in the current global context, we must use financial resources even more effectively. Investing in food systems and small-scale producers offers high returns, boosting productivity, resilience, jobs, and market access. And at the same time, it can address the root causes of hunger and poverty. To unlock these benefits, we must fully leverage concessional finance. Institutions like IFAD have a key role to play, but we cannot do it alone. We also need to crowd it private sector investments to rural areas through strong partnerships, bankable investments, and also constructing the right ecosystem. Today's report compels us to act. Let's move from concern to concrete coordinated steps, focusing on resilience, aligning financing and investment platforms, and working together with those who, despite being among the most vulnerable, feed the world. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Lario. As he said, we need to invest in adaptation before it's too late. We need to build resilience as well as tapping into the different emerging financial resources. We're now going to hear from Ms. Cindy McLean, the Executive Director of the World Food Programme. You're welcome.
Thank you. And good evening to everyone, especially those in the rafters. I hope I can see you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. I want to start by thanking my fellow speakers who are all great friends and colleagues to the World Food Programme and to the vulnerable people we serve. The range of organizations who have come together to launch the latest State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report, the SOFI report, highlights the critical importance of effective collaboration. If we're going to successfully combat hunger and tackle the causes of food insecurity. The report confirms what WFP is seeing on our front lines every day, the operations where on every single day, global hunger remains at high levels, driven by conflict, natural disasters, and economic instability. Families are being forced to adopt extreme coping strategies just to survive, skipping meals, selling productive assets like livestock, and taking their children out of school to send them to work. WFP and our partners are a vital lifeline to those who need it most. Last year, we reached 124 million people with life-saving food assistance. Yet it's getting harder all the time to do our job as humanitarians. WFP, along with every other international organization, is navigating a new and unprecedented funding and geopolitical landscape. Global needs are high, but the resources required to meet them are shrinking as governments everywhere refocus their budgets on domestic priorities. Operating environments are riskier and more complex. The multilateral system is being eroded, and it's more dangerous than ever for aid workers to fulfill their life-saving mission. We are reminded of this in Sudan just last month, where a joint WFP-UNICEF convoy was attacked on its way to Al Fashir, killing 5. It was appalling and unacceptable. I'm going to say this twice. Humanitarian aid workers are not targets. Humanitarian aid workers are not targets ever. But despite all of these hardships and challenges, our frontline teams are determined to stay and deliver. I'm so proud and grateful for their commitment to a world free from hunger, but we need your help to achieve it. This year, funding cuts of up to 40% mean that tens of millions of people will lose their life-saving food aid that WFP provides. The impacts are severe and wide-ranging. In Afghanistan, we've scaled back to a very narrowly targeted feeding program, aiming to cover a maximum of only 1 million people. But we're turning away 8.5 million needy people. In South Sudan, where 7.7 million people are acutely hunger and over 80,000 people catastrophic hunger, we'll be forced to end life-saving assistance to 2.3 million people next month. We've had to end our assistance to 1 million people, 1 million refugees in Uganda. While in Kenya, we've halted all cash assistance and rations to refugees are now less than 1/3 of the full amount. These are just a few examples. Sadly, the list of impending cuts coming down the line is much much longer. If they're implemented, the small gains in food security highlighted in this year's SOFI report will soon be wiped out, and the result will be further instability in volatile regions around the globe. Excellencies, in today's complex and challenging world, the continued support of our friends and our partners is more important than ever. Everyone here today agrees that combating hunger and tackling the causes of food insecurity is the right thing to do. So, united by our common purpose, let's all work together and even more closely to ensure we deliver for the vulnerable people we all serve. Thank you for your support and your collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Ms. McCain, for your valuable contribution and for being with us today. We truly appreciate your presence here, and we do understand that you have another very important engagement here. It is very okay. Please feel free to leave at your convenience. Thank you once again. I would like to invite Ms. McCain's colleague to come and take her place. Help me welcome Valerie Guarnieri, the Assistant Executive Director at the World Food Program, who will join us here at the podium. Now, our next speaker, Ms. Catherine Russell, the Executive Director of the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, couldn't be with us here today physically, but she did send a video message that I invite you all to watch.
Excellencies, colleagues, and partners, over the last 2 decades, we've witnessed remarkable progress in improving child nutrition across the globe. Since 2000, 57 million fewer children suffer from stunting, while the number of children benefiting from exclusive breastfeeding has risen by 80 million. These achievements show that with the right investments, change is possible. It's already happening at scale across countries and regions. We must build on these gains to do even more. Undernutrition continues to affect over 190 million children under the age of 5. These children are among the youngest, poorest, and most vulnerable. Many of them are impacted by conflict, by climate disasters, humanitarian crises, and lack of development. At the same time, overweight and obesity are rising at alarming rates, particularly among children from lower income families in low and middle income countries. Today, an estimated nearly 150 million children aged 5 to 9 are affected. At the heart of this crisis is a failure of food systems to deliver nutritious, safe, affordable, and sustainable diets for children. Over 181 million children under 5 live in severe child food poverty, consuming 2 or fewer of the 8 recommended food groups for healthy growth. Nutritious foods like fruits, vegetables, and high-quality proteins often remain out of reach, while ultra-processed foods offer a cheaper option. This contributes to poor nutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, stunting, obesity, and diet-related diseases. The 2025 State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World Report underscores the urgency of action. It shows how rising food prices are leading to poor diets and deepening food and nutrition insecurity. While the world produces enough food to end hunger, millions of families still can't afford or access the nutritious foods they need and that are essential to fuel children's growth and development. We call for a bold, coordinated response that prioritizes policies and fiscal measures to protect children's right to adequate nutrition. This includes targeted fiscal measures to ensure nutritious food is affordable, integrated nutrition and social protection programs, and long-term structural reforms through transformed food systems. UNICEF remains committed to supporting national efforts to strengthen food, health, social protection, and data systems. Good nutrition in early childhood is a game changer for children, for communities, and for nations. We must invest in solutions that have big impacts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now And now to conclude the partner segment, we are honored to hear from Dr. Tedros Adhanom, the Director General of World Health Organization, who has also shared a video message with us.
Your Excellency, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali, Your Excellency, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Your Excellencies, UN agency principals, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends. Nearly 1/3 of the world, about 2.6 billion people, cannot afford a healthy diet. This year's report, The State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World, details how food price shocks have led to a rise in acute malnutrition in vulnerable countries around the globe. This threatens lives and well-being, childhood development, and future earning power. Those in lower-income countries and communities are hit the hardest. When healthy diets become unaffordable, people are forced to eat fewer food groups, missing out on vital nutrients. And this new report shows only 1 out of 3 children globally are meeting the indicator of minimum dietary diversity, which is linked to healthy growth. We need action in 3 key areas. First, to ensure unimpeded access to deliver life-saving treatment to those facing acute malnutrition, especially in conflict zones. Second, to strengthen social protection systems to reach vulnerable populations with nutritious foods. And third, to reform food price policies to make healthy diets accessible, especially in lower-income communities. Thank you for your commitment to fight hunger and malnutrition and to making sure that food is a source of health for all. I thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all our distinguished speakers for the powerful commitments as well as also the contributions. We are now going to move into the heart of today's discussion. We've had snippets of the data of what's really in the report, but we're going to get a technical presentation and the details of the report. It is now my pleasure to invite once again Mr. Maximo Torero Callen, Chief Economist of Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, to walk us through the findings of the SOFI report 2025. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, honorable delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I have the pleasure of presenting the latest state of food security and nutrition in the world. This year, as you have already heard, we focus on addressing high food price inflation for food security and nutrition. As in previous year, this is a collaborative effort with IFAD, WFP, WHO, UNICEF, and FAO. A clear example of UN agencies collaborating together. Let me now pass to the first slide. If you can pass, please, in the control room. Okay. So this first slide, on the positive side, we are seeing signs of progress. Global hunger, as it was mentioned, has slightly declined from 8.7% in 2022 to 8.2% in 2024. That is encouraging, but let's be clear. 673 million people still go hungry today. And if current trends continue, over 500 million people will still be hungry by 2030, far from reaching our goal of zero hunger. But hunger is just a part of the story. Nearly 2.3 billion people lack regular access to food, and over 2.6 billion people can't afford a healthy diet. While there has been some progress in child nutrition, the world remains off track to meet any of the 7 global nutrition targets by 2030. This year's report takes a deep look at one of the biggest threats of food security and nutrition today, food price inflation. Since the pandemic, food prices have risen faster than overall inflation, hitting consumers and policymakers hard, especially in poorer countries. Behind this lies a perfect storm: massive pandemic-related spending, supply disruptions from the war in Ukraine, extreme weather events, and a strong US dollar that made food imports more expensive. The impact has been especially severe in low and lower middle income countries, where high prices have worsened food insecurity and increased child malnutrition. Nutrient-rich foods like fruits, vegetables, and animal products remain out of reach for many. Meanwhile, even basic staples, though cheaper, have seen sharper price increases, adding pressure on the poorest households. Yet, amid these challenges, there is a silver lining. Compared to two past food crises, especially in 2007, 2008, the global response today has been more coordinated, more measured, and more informed. In short, progress is happening, but not fast enough. We must intensify our efforts. That means ensuring that food is accessible, affordable, and nutritious for all. It means working together across countries, sectors, and nutritious to end hunger and malnutrition once and for all. This graph just shows what I have mentioned before. Is the indicator used to monitor hunger in the prevalence of undernourishment. And there you can see the evolution of hunger, of how in the last year we have been able to move to 673 million people out of hunger. Let me now move to what are the changes and where are the improvements and in which regions are the improvements. The difference among the regions and subregions of the world are stark. The progress seen at the global level is driven by notable improvements in Southern Asia, which reflects new data from India, Southeastern Asia, and South America. Unfortunately, this positive trend contrasts with the continuing rise of hunger in most subregions of Africa. In Eastern Africa, undernourishment is stable, and in Western Asia. In 2024, hunger affected about 307 million people in Africa, 323 million people in Asia, and 34 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean, 20.2, 6.7, and 5.1% of the population, respectively. From 2025 to 2030, the global number of undernourished is expected to decrease, but as I mentioned at the beginning, 512 million people are still projected to be facing hunger in 2030, of whom nearly 60% will be in Africa. This points to the urgent need to accelerate efforts towards achieving SDG 2, particularly in Africa, where we need to accelerate the process. But beyond hunger, some progress has also been made towards the broader goal of ensuring regular access to adequate food in recent years. At the global level, the prevalence of food insecurity based on the FIES, the Food Insecurity Experience Scale, which measures access to food, has declined gradually since 2021, the year when trends began to show signs of improvement following the sharp increase in the wake-up of the COVID-19 pandemic. The global prevalence decreased marginally from 28.4% in 2023 to 28% in 2024. About 2.3 billion people in the world are estimated to have been moderately or severely food insecure in 2024, 335 million more than in 2019, before the pandemic, and 683 million more than in 2015, when the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals was launched. Trends at the regional level differ notably, with food insecurity on the rise in Africa, falling in Latin America and the Caribbean, and decreasing gradually in Asia for several consecutive years. While in Oceania and the North America and Europe, new estimates point to a slight decline from 2023 to 2024, following a severe year of rise. Persisting inequalities between men and women are evident, with more adult women than men facing moderate or severe food insecurity globally and in every region of the world. After widening considerably in the wake-up of the COVID-19 pandemic, the gender gap narrowed at the global level from 2021 to 2023. But new estimates point to a widening of the gap between 2023 and 2024, driven mostly by Asia and to a lesser extent by North America and Europe. And this is something worrying that we need to recover the pace at which we were closing those gaps. Food prices rose throughout 2023 and 2024, pushing up the average cost of a healthy diet globally. Despite the increase in food prices, the number of people unable to afford a healthy diet in the world fell from 2.76 billion in 2019 to 2.60 billion in 2024, fueled by an economic recovery from the pandemic. However, the improvement has been very uneven across regions. The number of people unable to afford a healthy diet decreased significantly in Asia and marginally in Latin America and the Caribbean. Northern America, and Europe and Oceania. But in Africa, the number increased from 864 million in 2019 to just over 1 billion in 2024, indicating that a healthy diet is out of reach for 2/3 of the population in Africa. The nickel recovery is even more evident across country income groups. The number of people unable to afford a healthy diet in low-income countries has been steadily increasing since 2017, whereas the upper middle and high-income countries, the number has been declining since 2020. In lower middle-income countries, the number decreased from 2020 to 2024, but this improvement is mainly explained by the significant decrease in affordability in India. Excluding India, there is an increasing trend in lower middle-income countries in the number of people unable to afford a healthy diet. In low-income countries, the number increased from 464 million in 2019 to 545 million in 2024. And in lower middle-income countries, excluding India, from 791 to 869 million people in the same period. Next, please. Ending malnutrition is not only an integral part of SDG 2, but it is central to the achievement of nearly all the Sustainable Development Goals. Some progress has been made with notable improvements in global prevalence of exclusive breastfeeding until 6 months of age, improvements that lay the groundwork for children's future health and well-being. For the prevalence of stunting among children under 5 years of age, moderate progress have been made, but 23.2%, nearly one child over 4, is stunted. However, anemia among women aged 15 to 49 years has increased, and adult obesity is on the rise, pointing to the need for urgent action to turn these trends around. One essential line of action to end all forms of malnutrition is to improve the quality of the people's diets. In 2025, a new global nutrition indicator was endorsed to monitor the SDG target 2.2, the minimum dietary diversity. Globally, about 1/3 of children aged 6 to 23 months and 2/3 of women aged 15 to 49 years achieve a minimum dietary diversity, according to the latest estimates. Actions are needed to enable the consumption of diverse diets for women and children. Next, please. Now, let me go into the food price inflation. And here we see 3 core elements: political stability, can you do click? Macroeconomic stability, and food security and nutrition. Next. Next, please. Now, what we need to look carefully in those elements of food security and nutrition is to look at the evolution of prices and what is happening in terms of prices. So if you click and see the evolution, please click. You will see that the food price index has increased over the overall inflation. And that basically tells us that the non-food components of the basket of food is increasing at a lower rate than the food basket components. So here is where we need to look closely at what is happening with food inflation. As government began to relax the pandemic-related restrictions and the global economy started to recover, overall inflation was picked up by mid-2021. Subsequently, the eruption of the new war in Ukraine in February 2022 exacerbated the increase in price of agricultural commodities, fertilizers and energy, which translated into higher overall prices with major effects on food prices. At its peak in January 2023, food price inflation was 5.1 percentage points higher than the headline inflation of 13.6% and 8.5%. Clicker is not working. Apologies for that, but the clicker is not working. Okay, so we already went through this. This is not working. Okay. Can you pass, please? Okay, so let me continue, and apologies for that. Governments mobilize around 70 trillion in fiscal support This support was equivalent to nearly 10% of the global gross domestic product over 2 years. The US dollar index climbed by around 20% against the basket of global currencies during the past 10 years. And between June and September this year, the dollar index reached high historical values as the United States Federal Reserve raised its policy rates by 225 basis points. The global interest rates, if you can click next, please, in the control panel. The global interest rate shock has been accompanied by capital outflows, next, please, from developing countries, mainly driven by the higher yields and long-term government bonds across the advanced economies and the investors' quest for relatively safe assets. Please click next. Okay, stop there, please. Next, please. Next. Okay, one of the things and the impacts we are observing on food prices is that when we look at the elasticity and what will be the impact of an increase in overall prices, we observe that a 10% increase in food prices implies a 3.5% in overall increase in moderate food insecurity and severe food insecurity. A 10% in food prices imply a 4% increase in severe and moderate food insecurity for women. And a 10% increase in food prices implies a 5.5% increase in the prevalences of severe wasting among children under the years of age. So it's important to understand that these food prices have an impact on what will be happening in terms of the food security indicators that we are looking at and that we are evaluating. Let me finalize by bringing some important issues and to compare the analysis that we have been doing with previous case. So compared to previous crises, such as the food price spikes of 2007 and 2008, the global response to the sources of 2021 and 2023 inflationary shocks was more coordinated, informed, and restrained, as I mentioned before. One of the clearest examples is in the area of trade policies. While early crises were marked by widespread export bans and restricted measures that amplified global uncertainties and food price volatility, the recent episodes saw fewer match interventions. Where they did occur, they were generally short-term and less disruptive. Similarly, the importance of market transparency and timely information has been reaffirmed. Initiatives such as the Agricultural Market Information System, the AMIS, established by the G20 in response to 2007, 2008, and 2009, have a significant impact because they have played a key role in enhancing transparency of global food markets. The global response to the high food inflationary period also demonstrated the value of robust institutions. Countries with sound response structures, as well as established social protection systems, were able to protect the most vulnerable populations more effectively. One of the main messages of the 2025 edition of the SOFI report is that while food price inflation remains present concern, it is not undefeatable. Sustainable investments, strengthened policy coordination, greater transparency, back on track to achieve SDG 2 and affordable healthy diets for all. Colleagues, improvement has happened, but it's important that we transfer improvement in certain regions of the world to the other regions of the world. So let me finalize by saying that we know it can be done. It is being done in many countries of the world. And it's the time for Africa to shine. This is your moment on hesitations. You are paving the way, and if it accelerates your transformation of agri-food systems, you will do it. So it's time to act and to lead on the transformation of agri-food systems. So the continent of Africa soon turns the trend and becomes with less hunger, more equity, and of course, with better life for all the people living with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Martino, for taking us through these important findings. I'd also like to make that the report is now available online. If you want to get more the details and also look at the data deeply. To close this important gathering, we are now honored to welcome a leading voice in the global fight against hunger. Please help me welcome His Excellency Wellington Diaz, Minister for Development and Social Assistance, Family and Fight Against Hunger Federative Republic of Brazil. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Sua Excelência, Vice-Secretária-Geral das Nações Unidas, minha querida Amina Mohamed, Presidente da Etiópia, Taye Haske Selassie. Eu trago aqui o abraço do presidente do Brasil, presidente Lula, para estes e todas as autoridades, ministro Edmundo pela Itália, diretor-geral da FAO, Teodoro Gil, presidente do FIDA Álvaro Lário, pelo PLA, estive aqui a Cid McKay, agora que estou bem representada, nosso querido Máximo Correio, pela FAO, todas
Your
as
Excellencies, I would like to greet all of you, Excellency, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohamed, President of Ethiopia, the Prime Minister of Italy, Director General of FAO, President of IFAD, and the WFP Executive Director, and the FAO Chief Economist, Mrs. Fiona Naringwa, our moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, all the delegates here present, ladies and gentlemen from the public who are also following us, it is a great honor and a tremendous responsibility to share the stage with some outstanding authorities and world leaders to close this event that has focused on the most burning and most poignant issue that there can be: hunger. Since 2015, when the Sustainable Development Goals were approved by the UN, hunger and poverty in the world have been on the rise, rising from 600 million people in hunger in 2015 to 750 million in 2022. In 2024, we managed to bring world hunger down to the current estimate of 673 million people. Since Brazil's President Lula launched the proposal to resume the 2030 SDGs in 2023 in New Delhi, India, especially targets 1 and 2, as well as the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, this issue has become a priority for several countries, helping with knowledge and financial support. Since 2023, hunger has stopped growing and food insecurity has decreased again, with a reduction in poverty as well. South America, Southeast Asia, and South Asia have driven the improvement in these global indicators. But we need to support our brothers and sisters in Africa, West Asia, and the Caribbean to achieve the same results. In the midst of so much negative news that impacts precisely the most vulnerable, today we nevertheless are able to hear statistics and figures that bring us some small relief. The small relief is that we have managed to bring world hunger back down to the current estimate of 673 million figures, as the FAO told us here today. This means that since 2022, around 77 million people have stopped being hungry. At this rate, it's possible to get below 2.5% world hunger in about 12 years. By resolutely following the proposals we approved in the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, I would dare to say that we would be able to achieve this even faster if we have everybody's support up until 2030. I believe that the reason why I was invited to be with you today is to bring you hope and together with you to find a way forward. There are some good news in today's report. If we look at some of the regions, we have good progress in Southeast Asia, in South Asia, and also in my own South America, which in the last 2 decades has halved malnutrition from 8 to 4% of the population. More especially, the report brings excellent news about Brazil. And it gives me immense satisfaction here when talking about these good news to remember the work of a tireless champion against hunger, a man who suffered hunger in his own childhood and was not only able to overcome it, but also helped to lead an entire country to overcome hunger. Our dear President, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. President Lula, we know how, thanks to the policies that you've led during your first term in office, Brazil ended up leaving the hunger map in 2014. Unfortunately, we returned to that map in 2021 when the governments that followed him were unable to capitalize on the lessons that you tried to teach us. But President Lula, you took office again in 2023, and you promised the Brazilian people and the world that you would once again take Brazil off the hunger map. And that first time round took 11 years. Mr. President, with your leadership, hard work, and the help of many who support you, we were able in 2.5 years to keep your promise. According to the SOFI 2025 report, Brazil is once again off the hunger map. According to the report, with the average for the last 3 years, Brazil now has a malnourishment prevalence below 2.5%, which means that Brazil is now no longer on the hunger map. I know that our current figures are even lower than these, as the 3-year estimates still take into account the last year of the previous government's term in office. We will continue to improve our policies until there isn't a single person in Brazil who goes hungry, who isn't sure that they can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day with dignity and who are able to feed their children. Dear friends, Brazil's results are not only important for Brazil. The results from Brazil, Latin America, and Southeast Asia show that it is possible quickly. The path is this. We need robust public policies with social participation, a focus on the most vulnerable, and above all, the political will to allocate the appropriate resources to the implementation of these programs. These are social protection programs, programs that will encourage family farming, programs to promote healthy eating and sustainable food systems, school feeding programs, child nutrition programs, programs that can encourage employment and entrepreneurship, and many others that are integrated not only to end hunger, but also aim to overcome poverty and promote human dignity. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the approach that underlies the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. Based on President Lula's vision, the Global Alliance was created precisely to support countries in mobilizing and aligning resources around policies that work and that are led by national governments themselves. Today, the Global Alliance brings together 193 members, including 101 countries and 92 international organizations, development banks, financial institutions, and civil society organizations. And here we would like to thank the commitment of every single one of these. What makes this initiative unique is its focus on implementation. The Alliance doesn't create plans from scratch. We don't reinvent the wheel. It works to unlock the potential of strategies, plans, targets, and policies that already exist, which are effective, scalable, and aligned with local priorities, but which unfortunately often run against other programs due to the fragmentation of international cooperation or insufficient resources. There's a competition amongst them. We know what works. The Alliance's basket of policies was created for just that. And countries need now to be focused on the implementation of predictable solutions, coordinated funding, and ensure solutions at scale. The Global Alliance is a concrete tool to help with this, bringing together public policies, funding, and partnerships in favor of those who need it most. The Alliance is already supporting countries in drawing up implementation plans for programs against hunger and poverty as part of its process called FAST track initiative. 13 countries have already taken part in this initiative, promoting rural productive inclusion in Ethiopia, Rwanda, the Dominican Republic, early childhood social protection in Palestine and Tanzania, and income transfers and cash transfers in Zambia and Haiti, for example. But the alliance is for all of us, not just some of us. And I invite every organization, multilateral bank, every country to contribute, starting with these first plans. If we can get the support we need to make each of these plans a reality, and if more countries are inspired and manage to implement programs based on science and robust evidence to reduce hunger and poverty, I will be hopeful. We won't have to wait 60 years to end world hunger, because hunger is desperate, and we need to find solutions quickly. Finally, I would like to extend two invitations to everybody. The first is to join us on the 3rd of November in Doha, Qatar, for the first leaders meeting of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty and the Second World Summit on Social Development. The second invitation is to participate in COP30 in Belay, in my country. There we will take forward a leaders' declaration that will reaffirm what we already know in practice. The fight against climate change is the same fight against hunger and poverty. Hunger is not a fatality. It is a political choice. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' recognition of the Global Alliance proves that we're on the right track, uniting countries to guarantee the human right to food. As Guterres rightly pointed out, the future of food defines the future of humanity. We cannot tolerate hunger still being used as a weapon of war, nor can we accept the food crisis being treated only as a production problem when it is clearly a question of social justice. So you can count on Brazil, you can count on the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for those bold remarks. We really appreciate. And before we part, I want to leave you with this. Rising food prices are not just an economic issue, but they are human issue. What we have had today must not stay in this room. It must inspire action. It must inspire reform and resilience in every country, every system, and every community. And as Mr. Maximo did mention, he said that our goal is to continuously improve, ensuring that access to good, nourishing food, both for today and the future generations. Thank you once again for your presence, your leadership, and continued commitment. This concludes the official launch of the SOFI 2025 report. We invite all our guests to proceed to the lounge just outside Africa Hall for refreshments and for a reception. Once again, thank you all for joining us.
This isn't your bag, is it? Oh, it is. Oh, I was thinking my boss forgot.
Oh, thank you so much.
2019, the latest joint UN agency hunger report shows progress.
Thank you, Max.
The state of food security and nutrition in the world of 2025.
Oh my goodness, please don't tell me you've got another one.